So welcome to JavaPassion.com Android Programming webinar. So today's topic is security and permissions. So we are going to briefly touch Android security design principles, and then we are going to see how you can ask permissions as a requesting applications. As a requesting applications, and then we are going to take a look how you can enforce permissions. So you are server application and you are enforcing requesting application to provide some permission request. So we are going to see both sides, server side and client side, and we'll touch upon application signing briefly. We are going to talk about the detail, a step-by-step of signing, application signing, when we cover publishing. So here we are not going to actually touch upon a lot in application signing. We'll just touch upon a concept. So security design principles. It's nothing surprising. So by default, no application should harm other applications or operating system or the user. So the things that are not allowed include, for example, reading and writing private data of the users and reading and writing of another application's files, performing network access, or keeping device awake. So by default, these things are not allowed. If an application wants to do these kind of things, then that application has to ask for the permission, and then of course the permission should be granted before that application do any of these things. So in a sense, application's process is working in a secure sandbox, meaning it can do anything it wants within the sandbox, but it cannot do anything out of the sandbox. For example, the things we just talked about on the in the first bullet. Okay, so it cannot disrupt all the application, it cannot disrupt the operating system, except again by explicitly declaring permissions it needs. So by explicitly declaring, meaning explicitly asking for permissions it needs for these kind of capabilities. Okay, so let's look into how you can ask permissions, meaning how your application can ask permissions. We are talking about from a requesting applications standpoint. So as we just briefly touched upon, the permissions, the application request can be handled by the operating system. Well, actually, we didn't talk about this one in detail. So the permissions an application, requesting application, requested can be handled by the operating system in various ways. If it is allowed, then it will automatically allow that operation, or it might ask the user to confirm the request. And the permissions required by that applications are declared statically in that application. So it is known upfront at the installation time, meaning when you are, in fact, suppose if you are getting an application from Android Marketplace, and when that application is being installed, that is the time that the system will find out what permissions it's requesting, and then it will allow the installation or not. And once it's installed, then there is no checking. So this permission checking is done at the installation of requesting application. So as a requesting application, this is how you can ask for a permission. So you basically specify what you need in your Android manifest XML file using uses permission tags. So for each operation that you want to perform, you have to declare user's permission and the name of the permission. So this is again from user's perspective, meaning requesting application's perspective. You specify this is the permission I need using uses permission element. So this is a case that I need to monitor incoming SMS messages. So if you're building SMS monitor application, you got to have this permission in your manifest XML5. So as we talked about, permissions are granted at application installation time, and it is done by package installer based on, again, checks against the signatures of the application, declaring those app permissions or intentions with the user. So there are a couple of things that it check. It will check that permissions that requesting application has declared in the Android manifest XML file. It also checked the certificate, in this case signature. Okay. So again, as we talked about, no checks. Oops, sorry about that. No checks with the user are done while the application is running. So these are all application installation time checking. Okay, so that is the standpoint. That is a perspective from requesting application. Now we are going to take a look at the how we can enforce permission as the server application. If somebody wants to use your service, meaning maybe invoking an activity of your application, and you do not want that activity to be invoked by anybody, then you can actually specify this is the permission that I need before I can grant that activity to be invoked. So we are looking at the standpoint of the server application. Okay, so this is how you do it. You are going to specify the permission this is the permission. This is a custom permission in this case. So let me just kind of read these things first. To enforce your own permission, you can declare your permission definition in your manifest XML file. Okay, so you can have a multiple of this permission. So this is the permission that I define. This is the name of the permission, and this is a label. This is the description, and this is the permission group. You can specify this permission belongs to a particular group, and then you can specify protection level, dangerous, normal, and then we'll take a look at the couple of other options that you can specify in protection level in the hands-on lab. So once you define this permission or a set of permissions, and then you can use this permission per your activity. So yeah, actually I should have another slide in specifying I'm going to use this particular permission to be required on a particular activity, for example. Okay, so we'll see that example in the hands-on lab. So this slide shows just the definition of your permission, your custom permission, but it doesn't show what activity or service or broadcast receiver is actually enforcing this permission. Okay, so we'll see that in the hands-on lab. Okay, so let's talk about application signing briefly. So all Android applications must be signed with a certificate whose private key is held by the developer. So before installation, when you in fact create your Android application, even in developer mode, it's actually using developer certificate internally. So you don't actually see that, but it's actually using developer certificate to create APK file that is signed with that certificate. Okay, but when you publish it, you have to use your own certificate. So that's something that we are going to cover in publishing topic. I believe it is actually maybe next week's topic. Okay, so basically, certificate is identification of the author of the application or application itself. Okay. So this certificate does not need to be signed by certificate authority, such as a VeriSign, but you can certainly create your own the certificate yourself. Okay, and that's something that we are going to actually take a look in in publishing topic later on. So the certificate is used only for trust relationship between application, but not the wholesale control over whether application can be installed or not. Yeah, what it means is that it is used for just authentication, but it is not for authorization. So authorization is something that you specify using these permission things we just talked about. Okay. All right. So this is a very, very short presentation. Now let's take a look at the hands-on lab. So here we are going to have a very simple hands-on lab as well. So exercise 1 is we are going to run server application and client application. So this is in fact the same application that you have run in Android Activity Project, Android Activity Hands-on Lab. So Hello World, Hello Activity Server, and Hello Activity Client. So we just renamed it. It's a Security Hello Activity Server and Security Hello Activity Client. So exercise 1 is exactly the same application, so nothing really surprising here. So we are going to just run it. So I'm going to run Hello Activity Server. So this activity server has two activities, main activity and some activity. So if you take a look at the Android manifest XML file of the server, you are going to see two activities are defined. One is the hello activity, which is a main activity, and then some activity. So the client application will invoke this some activity. Okay? So again, there is no security things involved in this particular exercise. So so let's see whether server is up and running. Okay, so it's still doing it, and then we are going to run the client application to access this serve activity, some activity. Okay, so if you take a look at the client side, it's basically invoking the serve activity, the serve application's some activity. Okay, I see. All right, so this is the server. So this is the server. Now, I have a button here, don't click me yet, but it doesn't have to be. As long as the server has been in installed state, then any activity of the server can be invoked by any other client application. So, you don't really have to. In fact, you can just close this guy. So just going backward, you just close this guy, but it is installed state. So when you run the client application, run as Android application. So client application, when the button is clicked, it will invoke some activity of the server application, which we just have installed. Okay, so all right, so this is a client side. Okay, so when I click this button, it will invoke that some activity of the server application. Okay, what is this hourglass is doing here? Okay, now, all right, good. So here, this is the server activity. Some activity is now invoked from the client. Okay, so there is no security constraint in this case, right? So that's exercise 1. So now we are going to move on to exercise 2, where we are going to enforce the security permission on the server side. Okay, so exercise 2. So first of all, we are going to define custom permission, and then we are going to restrict to that some activity by using this permission element. Okay, so let's define the custom permission first. So we are going to define this custom permission on the server's Android manifest XML file. Okay, so let's do it together here. So this is a server, and this is, and then I'm going to click permission, and I'm going to add, and I'm going to add permission here, and I'm going to specify the name, label, permission. I don't need the permission group, description, and protection level. Okay, so I'm going to just use this this string. I'm going to just copy it. The name, I'm going to name it as javapassion.com.permission.text. And for label, I'm going to say test permission. And for description, I'm going to use this string resource, which we have not defined yet. And protection level, we are going to use normal. Okay, and I'll explain what this is all about in a few minutes. Okay, so what we have done is now we created basically the permission. Okay, this permission element, and the protection level is normal, description is this, and the label is test permission, and this is the name. Okay, so this is the permission. Okay, all right, so I'm going to just save it. Now you can see because we have not defined the string yet, okay, that's the reason we got this this error condition. So we are going to add the string into strings.xml file. Okay, so again, I'm going to just go to the documentation, and yes, I'm going to explain these things. So I'm going to copy this string, and then I'm going to add to string XML file. So here I'm going to just add here. Okay, and save, and then you can see the compile error of the manifest file is gone. Okay, so what we have done is basically we define the permission. Okay, now next thing we have to do is, okay, before we move on, let me just explain this the protection level. As I said before, when a requesting application is trying to access, for example, some resource of another application, for example, like trying to invoke an activity of another application, if permission is required, right? Now, from the provider, from the server perspective, when you define a particular permission, you can specify this the protection level. So normal is that when you set your permission as a normal, that means, you know, it will actually the system will allow the invocation automatically, assuming the requesting application has that specify that permission. Dangerous is actually dangerous. It may ask a user to confirm it as well. Okay. The signature is when both applications are in fact created the same certificate, then it will automatically allow the access. Okay, and the signature or system is, you know, rarely used. Okay, so you typically you're going to have a normal, some cases dangerous, and you know, the signature is when the applications are created using a same certificate. Okay, so far what we have done is defining the permission. Now you are going to specify that particular permission for your resource. So in this case, I am going to enforce my activity called the sum activity. When this sum activity is being invoked by requesting application, that requesting application has to have this permission. Okay, so in this case, this activity can be still invoked without going through any security constraint. This activity will be accessible only when the requesting application provide this permission. Okay, so this is the step that we are particularly specifying a particular resource, in this case an activity, to be security constrained. So I'm going to just copy, and then and here we want to have this one, some activity, to be also security constrained. Okay, so we are just adding this permission. Okay, so now we save it. Now we are going to reinstall the server. So we are going to reinstall this server, and then when we try to call the client, so let's make sure that we got the server up and running first. Okay, meaning reinstalled. So the new server is installed. So in this new server, that some activity is security constrained, meaning, you know, any application who wants to invoke that some activity needs to provide the permission. So when we run just regular client, so if you are running, if you're going to run this client application, it should not be able to access that some activity anymore. Okay, and that's something that we are going to actually try right now. Okay. Okay, so now this is a client. So when I click this guy, you should have an exception. Okay, so the application has stopped unexpectedly. Please try again. So if you take a look at, in fact, the log file, click DDMS. And if you take a look at the log file here, you can see, in fact, it is a security violation. Security exception, permission denial. Okay, this is what is expected. All right. Okay, so now we are going to make a change to the client. So this is what we just experienced. Okay, so now we are going to change the client. So the client now specify that permission. Okay, so here we are going to use is permission element. Okay, so the permission that we defined on the server side. Okay, so we go to client manifest file. So here we are going to define uses permission. So basically now it's declaring that it is, requesting this permission. Okay, so save it. Now let's run it. Run as. Okay, so we have to okay, so now we have a client application up and running. So when we click this one, it should work now because client is actually specifying correct permission. So hopefully this hourglass is gone. Okay, now it's gone. Okay. Yeah, so you can see server, some activity is accessible because we now provided the correct the permission in the client application. So that is pretty much what I have in hands-on lab. Okay, so it is a little bit simple hands-on lab. Okay, so that is the end of the presentation. So any questions?